I'm really glad you're here. This is the culmination of a year's worth of work from the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation team that pulled this competition off. So I want to start by thanking them, if you don't mind. Deb Williams, Madison Sutton, Halola Tuichiva, all of the student ambassadors. Thank you so much for giving us this good time. It's been an incredible event. There are a lot of other people to thank. I'm going to get to that later, but without further ado, I would like to invite Secretary of Commerce Hugh McDonald to the stage to kick us off tonight. Thank you so much for being here, Secretary McDonald.
Thank you, Sarah. How about one more round of applause for Sarah and her team? What they've done the last couple days and what they do all year long is amazing. I spent my career in a regulated monopoly, so when I get around entrepreneurs, I really get excited. It's pretty new stuff to me. So I want to welcome everybody to the 2023 awards banquet for Heartland Challenge. So it's great to be here. Entrepreneurship is, you know it better than I do, but it's somebody having a vision, it's creating that vision, it's having the guts to pursue it, the courage to put it all on the line and risk maybe everything to pursue your dream, and it's just exciting to be around all these teams today. I wasn't here yesterday, but the 4 teams today that presented were really exciting to see. You know, in many ways, entrepreneurship is kind of like the great American story, great American adventure, and maybe one of the greatest entrepreneurship stories happened just up the street here. And it's pretty special to be talking about that today. It's the engine of the economy, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs, they create thousands of jobs, they build generational wealth, they push the status quo, they disrupt industries, and it's just so exciting to be around what you guys are doing. And hopefully in my new role, we're trying to elevate entrepreneurship, small business across the state to levels that we haven't done before within state government. So I tell you that Arkansas, we want to make Arkansas one of the best places to found a business and run a business. There's no reason why we can't do that. The people here want to see you to be successful. And the entrepreneurial support organizations, which are new to me, I'm getting to know all of them across the state, but they are committed to making entrepreneurs successful in the state. They're committed, they're coordinated, they work together, are cooperative across the state, which is really, really exciting to me. We need to do more of that and build that network of entrepreneur support organizations across the state stronger, better. And so when you're thinking about building the business, you think about Arkansas first. Ultimately, that's got to be our vision and our goal. Certainly fortunate to build on the legacy that some of the world's greatest entrepreneurs started right up here in Northwest Arkansas. It's an amazing story. And special shout out to the Walton Family Charitable Support Foundation. I don't know if they're in the room, but what they have done in Arkansas to help support the entrepreneurship network has been fantastic, and we thank them so much. To the Heartland Challenge judges, thank you for being here from all 4 corners of North America and sharing your experience with the new founders. It's great for you to be here. And of course, to the teams, remember you have friends in Arkansas, no matter where you are. You've got lots of friends in Arkansas, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, do some more research on Arkansas. Let us learn about what it can offer you. It's a great state. I'm not from Arkansas, but I decided to retire here, and now I'm doing this job promoting the state. It's a great place to start a business. It's a great place to raise a family. So do your research, learn more about it, and come back permanently and build your company, build your family, and achieve your dreams here in Arkansas. It's a great place to do that. So let's get started, I guess. Congratulations again to the finalists, and good luck tonight and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary McDonald. That's a great way to kick off the evening. And thank you for all that you do and our state does to support entrepreneurs. It really does take cooperation from all sectors to create something like this over a long time. Okay, I'm going to first tell you the order of events tonight because I know there's one thing that some of you are really eager for. It's not going to happen just yet, and that is the awards. That comes at the end, but we have some great things that are happening between now and then. Number one, your meal. So please eat. Please feel free to get up if you need the restrooms. They're down the hall. Number two, we have an incredible duo for our keynote talk tonight that I will introduce momentarily. But before I do that, I do want to say a few words about our sponsors. This competition, as you can imagine, if you've ever done a large event like this, it takes a lot of people supporting it to pull it off. We have this incredible network of people who fly here from all over North America to participate as judges, and many of them are involved in our mentor community and come back again and again to do the really hard, thankless work sometimes of supporting entrepreneurs from day one. Thank you all so much, and the entrepreneurial support community that Secretary McDonald mentioned for the invisible work behind the scenes to build here. It just doesn't happen without you, and very few environments have the caliber and the number of people invested in this. So thank you so much. Thank you again to the Walton Family Charitable Support Foundation. I like to joke sometimes that they're like our angel investor. They were also our friends and family and fools. They were also our seed investor. Without their support, what we do in the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation just wouldn't have happened. You know, it is not part of the conventional academic structure to bring people across disciplines, to help them explore how to bring deep technologies into the market, to help them build companies and connect into their customer base and meet investors and travel around the world to compete in competitions like this, which we have done for many years. They've gotten us to a place now where we're attracting other sources of funding. And the first few years of this competition, we really relied entirely on their investment. But we now, thanks to the community, have this incredible network of other sponsors. So I'd like to thank ArcBest and White Spider. Please give them a round of applause for serving as our presenting sponsors. And judges, tough judges, thank you so much. Our premier sponsors, New Road Capital Partners, Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Echo Innovations. Another round of applause, please. Our sponsors for one of the most, I think, unique elements, I don't know of another competition that does something like this, of the Heartland Challenge, which is the Investor Roundtable, which for those of you who did not have the chance to participate in this puts the teams in the hot seat with real investors, and they are not allowed to bring any materials or any props or any slides. And the setup is like, you met this person in a restaurant or at an airport, and you've got to just be real with them, and they ask you real questions. Those sponsors are Symbiosis, Cadron Capital Partners, and 46 BC, also part of our judging pool. Thank you, guys. And then finally, our prize and event sponsors, Natural Capital, Health Tech Arkansas, Affirma, and Delta Solar. Thank you. One fast shout out before I introduce our keynote to my friend and colleague Jeff Stinson, sitting right here, of Health Tech Arkansas. Jeff took it upon himself after last year's competition. Actually, he came to us and asked permission, which was hysterical. He said, hey, would it be okay with you guys, and I promise I won't ask you to do anything, but would it be okay with you if I organized an ambassador program so that every team coming here from out of state had someone personally dedicated to them to help them get the lay of the land, make relationships, make connections, travel from meeting to the next. And then we said, yes, we will allow you to do that. Thank you so much. And I would love it if you are an ambassador, participated in this program, please raise your hand. I'd like to thank you tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I did not know that you have another career in your back pocket as a recruiter because you got some incredible talent on board. And most of the teams met these folks before they came here. So they already had a friend in town by the time they arrived. I really appreciate what you did for us. And I appreciate so much the ambassadors for doing that work. It makes a difference. This is about connectivity. Okay, I'm so excited to introduce our keynote event tonight. Earnest Sweat is an entrepreneur, investor, community builder, and most importantly, Arkansas native. Welcome home, Ernest. I hope it feels that way to you. As a venture partner at Great Point Ventures, Ernest invests in groundbreaking companies in 3 areas: e-commerce, infrastructure, the built environment, and big data, if you know anyone in big data. Those of you who watch the final round know what I'm talking about. He is a Kauffman Fellow and was selected to VC Journal's Rising Stars list in 2021, among many other notable achievements that would take all night to list. So I will move on to Charu, who herself could easily headline events of this order and much larger anywhere in the world. Interviewing Earnest tonight, we are so grateful to have Charu Thomas, who is the founder and CEO of Ox, which is a Bentonville-based human-centered automation firm. Charu, I read that you were the youngest founder to raise venture capital in Arkansas. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true? That's one of those read on the internet. Completely impressive. Many of you know Charu because you've seen her on the trails, taking meetings at Blake Street House, coaching entrepreneurs at much earlier stages, being the connector that she is, or maybe you saw her in the Wall Street Journal last week, which she was in. She has also been named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list and many, many, many other lists. And I am so happy that you are both going to be having this conversation tonight. And then after a discussion, we'll open it up for questions. So if you have questions for them, please get them going. And with that, please welcome Charu and Ernest to the stage.
Hello.
Hey, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm so thrilled to be here and really honored to have this opportunity to interview Ernest because just a couple years ago, I was in your all's seat as a student at Georgia Tech, and Ernest was literally one of the first, if not the first, venture capitalists that I met throughout my career. And he's just been such an incredible friend, supporter, advisor of mine, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you today. So,
I'm honored as well that you're here. And when they asked me who would I want to interview me, I was like, you came up as like the obvious choice. And I'm actually going to be interviewing you as well, so it's not just going to be on me.
Yeah. So Ernest, I guess to get started, tell us a little bit about how you got to your role at Great, especially in venture capital. I mean, it's such a unique ecosystem to be a part of. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. Venture isn't, although there's probably thousands and millions of posts about how people have broke into venture capital, not even ChatGPT can probably synthesize the best path of how to get in. And so I have a similar kind of a story that's untraditional. But, this question of like the origin story really kind of starts in Arkansas. And looking back, it makes so much sense because I come from people investors, right? Like my parents, the 2 most important people in my life are people investors. If they would have known about venture capital, they would have been venture capitalists. And it wasn't something they just kind of like preached to me and my sister. They lived it through their professions. My mother was a middle school teacher for Little Rock Public Schools for 40 years. My dad worked for the state of Arkansas. He eventually became the director of IT for their workforce development agency. And then after he retired that, he still kept his other passion, which he's a full-time pastor. And so this idea and kind of family value of learning and providing information that can equip others to be successful is just something that I was literally taught and born with. And so kind of fast forwarding, like venture capital is a natural, even though there's a lot of other stuff associated with it too. The best parts of venture capital are extremely aligned with like who I am as a person. And so how I got here, I mean, I can go through so many things, but real quickly. So like, was fortunate enough, went to Columbia for undergrad. That was like a life-changing experience. Worked in Wall Street in equity research in 2007. So I was not a child of summer. Like I got a gut punch to what could happen in this economy the day I started working, pretty much. And so from there, I learned that I really loved how to synthesize both the micro and macro of it. So understanding what a company's going through, but then how has it impacted you all as entrepreneurs? How does, like, you could have the perfect plan, but how is it impacted by the entire macro environment? And also, like, I really love equity research too, starting there, because you have to be bold. Like, there's so many of my peers in venture capital who are afraid of like, oh, if I post this blog post and my thesis is wrong, I had to do that every day. Like literally, like say that this stock you should sell and it might pop 15% up, and have to be committed to like what my thesis is. And so did that for 4 years, then became an entrepreneur. We can get into that later. That was a short period of time. But from that experience, I wanted to really kind of give back from like the mistakes I made. And so I went to business school at Kellogg. That's where I learned about venture. And so eventually, it's a crazy story. I had a venture capital internship in New Delhi, India for a summer internship. Traveled all over India, investing in ed tech and future of work stuff. But kind of like the light bulb went off. It was like, this is everything I loved about equity research and more. I'm not only making recommendations to my client base, but now I'm putting skin in the game. So like I'm invested in this. This is a partnership. And that's what was missing. And so did that, then finished up school and just moved out to the Bay Area so I could be near it, because I knew a lot of venture capital roles were there. Did management consulting. I feel like I'm just reading my resume at this point. Hated it. And for all you former management consultants, worst job ever. Then went off and just tried to interview and meet everybody and made all the mistakes, wore suits to a venture capital interview, and found Prologis, which is a company I used to cover as an equity research analyst. It's the largest industrial REIT in the world, and they were starting a corporate venture group. So that's how I got in.
Yeah.
That was kind of a trailer, or like a long trailer that they do at Comic-Con or something, but like, yeah, we can talk more about it. We can dig more into that. But that's how I got into venture. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's such a storied background, right? From all these different roles. I think what's been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself as you've come into your role as a venture capitalist? Like, it sounds like you've learned a lot from, the time in the management consulting and, so.
It is truly a relationship business. And whether it's, a founder that you're meeting, or it's like, the firm that you work at, it's so unique because unlike when I worked on Wall Street, and it was kind of like there's a set path to success. It's like, I do 3 years as an analyst, 2 years as an associate, then VP, whatever, then I'll be running a desk. And it doesn't really work like that in venture capital, because you can do everything right and do a blueprint like someone before you, and the market could just be very different. And so it's so key to understand that you're developing these relationships with founders, with your colleagues, other investors, and LPs. People don't mention those are very important relationships. I think that's what's really surprised me. And then jumping into it without fear of like making mistakes or something. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. It's a part of it, but like being able to iterate on those mistakes just like founders do.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really, really interesting. So I guess you kind of spoke a little bit about the macro environment just now, and I know that's something that's on a lot of people's minds. How do you kind of see that evolving over the next couple of years? I know, none of us really have a crystal ball. There's so many things that we've all faced over the past year or two that are unprecedented, but how do you kind of see the environment today, and how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, it does feel unprecedented. I feel like we should retire that word too. I feel like
Yeah,
over
sorry.
the last since like 2020, I've said that way too much.
Yeah. Basic, sorry.
No, that's good. So the environment, I feel like we all just need to take a breath, because think about it. It's 2023. We're not even done with the 4th month. And it feels like this year alone has been 2 years. Right? And so like this whole decade has been a doozy. And I think because of that, low interest rates, my industry figured out, you can write term sheets and give people term sheets without traveling to where they are for the first time. I don't know why we've had Zoom and Skype for so long, but we've just finally realized it. And so that really increased like competition, and also really gave access to people who, didn't know anybody on the coast to actually be able to network. So that just caused a lot of activity. We've seen rises in the amount of capital that goes into venture capital. But the public markets and what's been going on has really, shattered things. And it can be for a number of reasons, not to mention what happened last month with SVB. So where that leaves us today is I'm still bullish. I mean, I'm a venture capitalist, so like I'm going to be optimistic. But I'm extremely bullish on the early stage. So if you're starting a company now, it's a great time. If you're if you're raising and going from pre-seed to seed, it's still a good time. Or if you're even raising a seed and going to Series A, I think it's a good time. Now B and up, we're gonna see what people are made of. A lot of secondaries are flying out there right now. Talking to my friends in growth, and a lot of people with valuations that they haven't really grown into. And so there still needs to be that correction of founders understanding where they're going to get priced, and they need to make those hard decisions of like, do they want 100% of zero, or do they want less of 100% of something? But I'm extremely bullish, and all the things that have happened over these, this early decade, I think, as an enterprise investor, we have to have more adoption of technology within our foundational industries. And I just define foundational as a broad stroke of anything that's not serving high-tech companies. And that's because of kind of 3 things I've seen even before this decade, but certainly now. One, centralized systems that we were using in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, whether it's legacy systems of technology or systems of people, are not equipped to deal with the complexity of the business environment today, right? Like we're dealing with both globalization and deglobalization at the same time. Not sure how that works, but it's working. Second, because of that complexity, we're seeing business leaders of all sizes are seeing their 2 most important stakeholders demand transparency and speed at an unprecedented pace. So like they're seeing that from both their employees and their customers. And third, we're in the wonkiest labor market. I like to say that from cashier to ML engineer, we don't have enough people to fill the actual need of jobs that are out there. So how do we like actually help these industries do more with less? How do we like help these, whether you're running an SMB to Fortune 500 company, it's going to be through technology. And so I'm extremely excited about the types of entrepreneurs that are emerging now, because you can look back at the last 10 years, and especially this bull run, a lot of things that were getting funded were iterative. They weren't solving key pain points for customers. And like, it was like the 17th most critical problem of productivity, right? Another productivity software, right? And so we need, for these hard industries that don't have enough people, that need technology, we need people to solve those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely resonates with me because at Ox, our entire vision around human-centered automation is to excite, engage, and empower frontline operators in these types of environments. And so
I was hoping you was gonna catch that alley-oop for you.
No, I see you, man. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, and I guess in these environments, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics approximates that over 60% of operators turn over every 12 months. And for some of our customers, it can be as high as 90% over 3 months, right? So it's a leaky bucket, right? And so if you have attrition at that level, it's so important to invest in the infrastructure and technology to, make sure that people have the tools that they need to truly succeed.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely resonates a lot. I guess shifting gears.
Wait, question for you though.
Yeah,
what's
shoot.
on the macro side, how are you seeing it? It looks tough out there for founders.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Raising. So how have you been able to, or what have you seen talking to friends? What advice do you have for founders right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just at a CEO retreat literally yesterday with one of the other keynote speakers, Anna Mason, who used to be at Rise of the Rest Revolution. They're one of our investors as well. And it was an incredible opportunity to be around 60 different founders and investors across the country. And yeah, I definitely think that people, one of the big themes that they talked about was the completely different market that we live in today versus, maybe 18 to 24 months ago. And that was a pretty common theme, just growth at all costs. That's not necessarily, really the goal anymore. And so the way I like to kind of think about it is, as an entrepreneur, you have a vision, you have a place that you're trying to go, and you have a car, and the money is like the gas in the car, right? So you're just trying to get to your end destination, but you can't really control how the weather is, right? So if there's a hurricane or a tornado, unfortunately, it's out of your control a little bit, but it does actually impact if you can get gas or not, right? And so there's quite a few companies that, friends, that are really inspiring leaders to me. And they can do, I think we even spoke a little bit about this prior, about how you can do everything right.
Yeah.
And still not succeed in this type of market because, again, you can't control the weather. And so it's really unfortunate in a lot of ways. I think the best thing that we can do as entrepreneurs is, we have to be gritty, right? And we have to keep in mind the environment that we're in and operate in a different way than we did 18 to 24 months ago and let go of the outcome, because candidly, we don't really control that.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's good question. It's a good question. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, honestly, but
yeah, I wasn't expecting you to have some remember the Titans speech, but I hope the entrepreneurs out there feel oh, I feel seen. It is tough,
Yeah, totally. It is, yeah. Yeah, so I guess shifting gears a little bit, I think something that both you and I have spoken about in the past is the power of diversity and inclusion in the industry. And maybe in entrepreneurship and venture, they're pretty opaque markets in a lot of ways. And so how do you kind of think of that? How has it evolved over the past couple of years? How do you see it evolving, especially in this new environment?
This is an issue that's definitely important to me and was kind of the inspiration for why a group of us started Black VC, which is a nonprofit with the goal of increasing the number of Black GPs in the asset class. And so, it's definitely gotten better. You're seeing more and more diversity within the industry. But to be frank, when I entered the industry, I was like, damn, this makes investment banking look like a Benetton ad. For you Gen Z, you might not know what that is. But so we definitely got some work to do. And I think that it's, people, have put out a number of studies on the importance of diversity in teams and how it impacts, performance. But I think it's critical in venture capital because if the goal is to always be on the precipice of what's coming, having a diversity of thought gives you a competitive advantage. It is extremely easy. I'm in the industry now 7 years, and now I can see how it can be extremely easy, especially if you had some success, especially in the market that we were just in when everybody had a 3X unrealized fund, right, performance, on thinking that you're really good and you being comfortable. And it's important for, in whatever group in that scene that's making a decision, to be intellectually honest and trying to push, because it's easy to miss new things. And so that's why I think diversity, whether it's race, gender, age, where people are from, geographic, is important. I've said extremely like 17 times, but it's important to have that diversity. So it definitely needs to change. I don't have any answer for that, but it just needs to change, and that's why organizations like Black VC exist, and being able to bring, whether it's early in people's career, mid-career, or the senior advisor, people coming from industry into venture.
I mean, thank you so much for, taking the initiative to create an organization like that, because it is incredibly important, especially as a founder, to see that change being started and pioneered.
That's the other thing. There are founders that come from all walks of life. Right. And as I mentioned before, this is a relationship business. If, the minute I send, especially at the early stage, give someone a term sheet, that's a marriage. We are committed for, probably 7 to 10 years together, if not more, right? Because Stripe is still private, right? And so, I think having different types of people at the firm will help you connect with all different types of entrepreneurs. So it's critical.
Absolutely. We have a lot of really young and incredible and inspiring founders in the room. What advice do you have for them when pitching venture capitalists like yourself?
First, there's a lot of pre-work that you should do. I would look at what they invest in, making sure in what stage, to make sure that you have something that fits within their wheelhouse, and that they would actually be a good fit for your syndicate, right, or being your lead investor. Also, if you can get any information from other entrepreneurs who have pitched them, or if you have any other VC friends who are maybe later stage but that can tell you about those folks, that's helpful. I'm pretty sure when I introduced you to your lead investor, seed investor, I gave you some insight on kind of what they look for and stuff. So that's another thing. And then when you pitch, people be flexible. People have different styles. I'm one in which I actually do the pre-work, and if you sent me a deck, I've actually read it. I've actually looked at the website. This is low bar, but I've actually done these things. Some people don't. So they may want to for you to go over the entire deck. I like to actually have a conversation and get what's behind the deck, get into that trailer, as I mentioned earlier. What is the origin story? Why do you wake up every day wanting to solve this problem? And why are you the person that's going to make this work and create something from nothing when there's a million reasons why it won't work? That's what I like to. And then what competitive advantage do you have? What insight? So, and then people have their different types of archetypes they look for. But for in my spaces, I look for I won't get into specifics, but I just look for a perspective of having an understanding of what your clear advantage is, what your vision is for scale, and why is this a critical problem that you're solving? Like, is it a nice to have for your customers, or did they need it 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I guess like on a different note, there's probably some emerging venture capitalists in the room. What advice do you have for folks who are considering a career in venture capital?
That's a good question. You have to be entrepreneurial. We were talking about this earlier. There's some similarities to it. You have to be entrepreneurial. You should definitely be comfortable with the lack of structure as well. Because when I get the question a lot of like, what does a day look like?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, if I told you, you're gonna think I didn't really do any work. I like talked to some people, had a coffee, went to the happy hour, and then looked at a spreadsheet. You know, like, I don't know. So you have to be comfortable with like not structure and creating your own structure. You have to understand what is your narrative. Like, you know, for me when I was younger, I really felt that, okay, I need to find the exact blueprint, and I'm gonna look at that person's life, you know, when they started in the 90s or whatever, and I'm just gonna try to repeat that. And whatever the hype cycle, you know, space is, I need to be good at that because that's what people wanna know. And if that's misaligned from like my previous experience, then like there's gonna be people who have been actually following that space for a long time. You know, like those weird crypto people in 2012 that tried to get you to do like buy Bitcoin. And you would have if they weren't so about it. But, you know, so there's gonna be people who like speak the language and know that. So I always say like, leverage your background. So for me, I worked in equity research, I covered REITs. So I said, I know what a big real estate company, how it looks, and I know what problems they have. So now I just need to match technology that can solve their biggest problems. So that's one piece. You also need to be comfortable with like, there was a whole movement when I first got into venture of venture capitalists wanting every principal that they had to be a product manager. And so these are like real operators. Operators hate this job. You know, because y'all have like KPIs and you like, how much code did we ship out that we were gonna say? Like there's a literal scoreboard. There are people in my industry who have been doing their job for 10 years and don't know if they're good yet. Yeah. Right. There are investments that they originally made that were like going like this and don't look good now. Like, so like you have to be comfortable with the ambiguity of it all too. And you have to create a competitive edge. So that's why like understanding what your narrative is important.
No, fair enough. I mean, honestly, I think it's very similar to entrepreneurship, right? It's like seeing something that doesn't exist and willing it, you know, into fruition. I really appreciate the conversation, and I know you have so much to share. So I wanted to actually open up the floor for any questions for any folks in the room that might have something to ask Earnest.
No dumb questions. You can ask anything. I don't have to answer everything.
Oh, here you go.
Thank you very much. So someone was telling me that like imposter syndrome is really common in the venture industry because as you're starting out, you find out all the ones that didn't work fairly early on. But to your point, you don't really know your winners until quite a lot later. And I'd be curious, what type of support systems one, is that a real issue? And two, what sort of support systems exist for early stage venture capitalists?
Imposter syndrome for venture capitalists?
You wouldn't guess that from the blogs and
with
stuff
all
that
their podcasts and blogs and opinions, yeah, it's real. Yeah, I don't think organizations like Kauffman Foundation or Kauffman Fellows Program or I'm in this program called Speakeasy would be, operating if that wasn't an issue. And you see imposter syndrome also with founders as well. And so it's something like having peers, if they're in your organization or outside, to just talk about the nuances of the job and how like you can second guess your jump shot a little bit sometimes, and that could lead you to some of your biggest misses. And so for me, what I've been able to do is find like-minded investors who are kind of around the same stage in career and have those honest conversations and say, how do you approach it? How do you approach this situation? Because another thing that I didn't mention from the last question you asked is you have to be good at having influence on people when maybe you don't have any leverage. And that takes, understanding like what motivates people, what slight leverage you might have. And so that's another piece that like just learning from other people, kind of the tricks in the trade. And then you kind of have to go to the mental gym and work on it. So, but it's definitely a real thing. And I think you see it with entrepreneurs too, right? Especially when like the industry there's not a lot of people who are super genuine about that or open about it. I won't name any podcasts.
So you mentioned a lot about the competition rising in your industry. What advice could you give to someone that's trying to stand out?
Oh, that's great. I have one friend who is at a really prominent firm on Sand Hill Road, and he has a thing where I won't say his name. I'll make up a name. But he has a thing where he says, you can't out-Michael me, right? Like he says certain points in his career, even with his peers, he's tried to act like them. And at a certain point, he was like, I just got to be Michael. And so nobody's going to out-Michael me. And so it goes to like, what are your passions? What is your zone of genius? This is something that we say at Kauffman a lot. Like, what is your zone of genius? Something you're great at and that comes naturally to you. And you got to lean into that. I'm a product of going to Columbia, so it's like a product of being jack of all trades with like liberal arts. You're like, I need to learn everything. When you look at like the history of like literally every industry, most people lean in on one or two skills they're really good at. And then they just bring other people around them who are good, who fill the gaps in those other things. And so that's how you stand out, is when you really lean into what your strengths. So for me, it's been, we were talking about this earlier too, where, I like to connect with people and people feel generally kind of comfortable with me at a very quick period of time. I also like asking questions, so there's a natural curiosity. And third, I like being a bridge. So, because I've had to do that. So going from Arkansas to Columbia, I didn't go to Andover or Exeter. So I had to make and bridge and bring communities together. And so thing that I just love doing, I do it in diligence too when I'm talking to a company, even before I give them a term sheet, or even if I don't. I like to understand who their personas they're going after, their customer base. And so I'll think of 2 to 3 people in my network and introduce them. So I get unfiltered feedback from those people I introduce them to. They get a shot on goal to sell, and they get to understand what I can give them day 0, right? And so I love connecting people. And even when things haven't worked out, that's just reverberated and helped me win deals in the future.
Hi. Thank you for being here, giving us this opportunity. I am Daimara Baker. I have a question. I love that you said that you're a builder. You're building bridges to connect communities and people. Understanding that women entrepreneurs receive less than 2% of the VC capital, VC investments. How do we change the narrative, and how do we build a different bridge for them?
Well, you know, the way the industry is approached is like, well, we just need to bring in more female investors, but it shouldn't just be all on them. Like, it's all of us, right? And we need to. There's going to be very talented. There are very talented female entrepreneurs that need to have capital, and so. This is where diversity of of teams and how, you know, we could have a whole discussion on how venture firms make decisions, which I won't get into. But having diversity of all types of people inside your investment committee will help so that you can make the right decision or even be able to connect, right, to those entrepreneurs and understand the problems that they're solving. I don't know. I'm thinking about it too for, you know, when looking at how little amount of Black GPs that we have, especially if you don't include the emerging managers, which is a great class of investors. But like when you think about storied firms, it's really lacked. And so I'm not giving any solutions, but I don't think they need more mentorship. They just need capital. So I feel like she asked me to like solve like world hunger, and I was like, oh, no, man.
So how do you gauge decisions about investing from a brand new CEO versus somebody that's been there, done that before?
Yeah. I wish you could say, you know, if you had like the Monday meeting and you had, you know, 2 pitches coming in, and if you have somebody who's a repeat founder and then a new founder coming in, you'd be like, oh, the same criteria we look at, but it's just, I mean, we're human, right? Especially if that repeat founder has made that firm money, it's a very different criteria. But for the new founder, I think it leans into what I was speaking about first, like, what is the competitive advantage that they do have? Just because you haven't been a founder or CEO before doesn't mean that you don't have a competitive advantage. Maybe you've worked in an industry for a number of years or grew up in an industry, like literally your family ran a construction company and now you're looking to build construction tech. Like, what is that? Because that's gonna fuel your passion every day when things get hard. And then, like, you know, how I don't think enough firms look at just like the business. I look at the business risk a lot of times. So obviously I'll look at the technical risk, but also like, is this critical? So that's why I always introduce people to potential customers, because I want to know, is like, would you guys actually pay for this? Also, side note, when you send us your reference list of customers, we know that they're going to say great things. So, and if they don't give an NPS of more than like 9, coach your customer references, please. I think back to your question. I also think about who are they surrounding themselves with. Do they have the right advisors that can help them? You know, you're going to face new problems when you're scaling as a new CEO that you've never faced. Yeah, some of that stuff. And then a repeat founder is like, I don't know, you see some situations where they just like, I got an idea. And people just remember recency bias, right? They remember how much money they made with you. Yeah, exactly.
I think we have time for one more question.
I have a question.
Okay, two more.
So Ernest, thanks for coming back and representing Arkansas. But you
I'm
went
lost.
Where you
Where?
are.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
okay, perfect.
But you went to Columbia and you went to Kellogg. These are prestigious schools, and so from your
Not in venture, but yes.
well, just from your experience, what did you gain from going to these institutions that you thought was valuable in your career that could be incorporated maybe in some of the education programs here at the university?
That's a great question. I don't know, being a kid in Little Rock and then going to literally like New York City, Manhattan, most people thought the culture shock was going to be just how the big city and all the things that are going on there. But no, I love that because I used to watch Jay-Z videos all the time. It was actually the classroom that challenged me. And just like the Jeffersonian conversations and like, even when we were outside of the classroom, just the things people were saying and just learning. And as different and unique as everyone was, we were all still 19 and 20-year-olds and we had so much in common. And so I think that's where it kind of like this whole idea of being a bridge kind of was like manifested with me. Because, you know, it's going into imposter syndrome, I definitely came in thinking, man, how the hell did I get into this school? From public school in Little Rock. Let's go, yeah. But I, quickly found that, they were learning as much from me as I was learning from them. And, it just all comes down to exposure. And so what has helped me, like I didn't even know really what Wall Street was until I got there. And so having the exposure even at Kellogg of going to India in a unique time in the country's history when like the middle class was really growing and seeing that like, no matter the social class, people wanted to spend money on education technology for their children. That was just eye-opening. And I literally wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for Kellogg. They had a program to send people to either work for a startup or a venture capital firm in India. And honestly, if I would have gotten a certain consulting summer internship, I probably would have copped out and just worked in Cleveland or something. But I didn't. God closes doors sometimes and opens others. And then I got this whole this experience in India, so that was really cool. So I would say more experimental courses. I know a group of students went out to the Bay recently to meet with some firms. I was supposed to meet with them and got COVID for the first time for some reason. Yeah, so doing more things like that I think is important.
So could you sum that up as diversity of experience?
Yeah. Diversity experience, and I was with one of the chancellors and seeing just like how this university has grown and how many, even just having how many out-of-state students are there at the school now too, which I think is cool.
One last question, I think it's me.
What's up?
How's it going? Without having a crystal ball, where do you see in the short to medium term, where do you see venture going? And also, where is Earnest Sweat going?
Good question. Well, for me, it is, I'm a boring, actually, I made a promise I'm not going to say boring to what I do. I love enterprise technology, and I'm extremely bullish on it. So for people building vertical SaaS, B2B marketplaces, middleware, and no-code AI, that's my jam, especially if you're doing it for an industry that people usually don't go after. So that's my jam, and I think that's going to really solve a lot of the problems that I mentioned before. As far as where venture is going, we got kind of crazy in like how much we were raising, how much capital went into venture. And so I think we're going to have a lot of consolidation from LPs, which means there's going to be some funds that don't exist when we get to 2030. And originally, I saw articles coming out saying it would impact emerging managers more. I actually think it's going to be like if we separated them in 3 groups. If it's emerging managers, so anybody who's like between Fund 1 and Fund 3, 4, and then 2 groups in established. So like the top firms, which we all know their names, and then like the firms that have been around for a long time, but maybe on the down or just kind of middling. I think we're going to see, changes in how big those funds are for all those different groups. Because the last 10 years, you really didn't have to be differentiated. You look at everybody's website, we're founder friendly. We all wear the same blue shirt and Patagonia vest. And I think that won't cut it. And so I think people need to understand, somebody explained to me once, a mentor, he said, one very prominent venture fund, so I'm not naming people's funds because I'm not a commercial for them, but one of the funds said, you have to understand what is your oxygen. And what would your oxygen was before that gave you an advantage, everybody else probably caught up to it. So what is it going to be for the next chapter? And so people need to really think about, even as individual investors and as firms, what is your competitive advantage? What are you going after? And so where that leads, I think in 2030, we'll have a different list of what the top firms are. Some of those will be new names. Some will be the same names, but there'll be different people running them.
Really powerful stuff, Earnest. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.